Hey guys, it's been a while since I've talked about expansion in the CPL, and with a new growing league as young as the CPL is, we know expansion is on the forefront of everyone's minds. So, since my last video on this topic, where the CPL should expand to, so many different things have come out, from David Klanikin to many different Twitter accounts all tweeting about possible investors and possible buyers and venues that the CPL could move to, as well as a short list of cities that the CPL is looking at moving into as soon as 2021. So right now I'm just going to look into these rumors of where the CPL might be moving to in the next few years, look at these cities that have been linked to CPL teams, and kind of look at what we know about all of these rumors. So to start things off, two things not directly related to the CPL happened in the past couple months in this off season. First off, the Ottawa Fury folded, which was incredibly unfortunate, but looking back at it now, it appears that it just seems like OSEG was looking for an out from the soccer business and basically just used the fact that they'd have to move into the CPL as an excuse. And it's not really that they didn't want to move into the CPL, it's just that I don't think they wanted to have a soccer team at all anymore. So the Ottawa Fury folded, which is incredibly unfortunate because it means there's no professional soccer in Canada's capital. The second thing that happened, less related to the CPL, is the Mississauga Metro Stars, who played in the MASL, or Major Arena Soccer League, first became the Canada Metro Stars, and they said they were going to do a traveling team thing, play 2 home games in different arenas in different cities around Southern Ontario. And that seemed like a really interesting idea, but obviously they weren't able to properly get times to play in all these venues because before the season started, they folded. So Canada lost our only major arena soccer league team, and we lost our last remaining USL team. Now, both of these are very bad because it raises questions on the sustainability of professional soccer in Canada, but I think that's the whole purpose of the CPL, is to give a professional soccer league that's only Canadian teams. You don't need to worry about crossing the border. You don't need to worry about playing in a league not based in your own country. It should be easier to play in the CPL and more cost effective. So the big expansion rumors from the last couple months. First off, a little after the Ottawa Fury folded, it came out that David Klanikin was in talks with 4 ownership groups across Canada about potentially expanding to these markets as soon as 2021. Now, what Klanikin said about this was he was in talks with a group on the West Coast, a group in the Middle Prairie provinces, a group in Ontario, and a group in Quebec. Now, from what we've heard in the past, it's pretty easy to guess what these 4 groups he was talking about are. For the West Coast, there's been a lot of talk about a team in the greater Vancouver area, a team in a suburb of Vancouver, and there's been rumors of a stadium going up around Langley. So it seems like that for BC, we're looking at Langley as a potential expansion site. Now, for the second one, in the Prairie provinces, it's been no secret since the CPL was announced that groups in Saskatoon are pushing really hard to get a team, and Saskatoon soccer fans really want there to be a team in Saskatoon. So it makes a lot of sense that the group there would be Saskatoon, and with the summer series going on with the Saskatoon Selects facing off against like Calgary Foothills and those sorts of teams, it seems like this year Saskatoon was the only team preparing to see how a CPL team could perform there, kind of like what Edmonton and Calgary did, having their like tryout rosters playing each other in the first El Clasico last year. It seems like Saskatoon's doing that, the selects team. And of all 4 of these locations, it seems like Saskatoon is the one that would be ready to go the quickest. And if there was going to be at least one team for 2021, I would put my money on it being Saskatoon. Now for Quebec, we know for a fact that Alex Bunbury has been very vocal about trying to put a team in the Montreal area. And so with that, it makes sense that the Quebec bid would be him, possibly with the team in Laval, which has been talked about a lot. There's also been groups in Quebec City that have shown interest, so it could also be that. So it seems to me that a Quebec group could either be Alex Bunbury in Montreal or a group in Quebec City. And a lot like Saskatoon, a Quebec team in one of these 2 places has had a lot of talk around it since the CPL was basically announced. So it wouldn't surprise me if either Laval or Quebec City would be another potential expansion city ready to go for 2021. Now, Ontario is the interesting one because there has been a lot of rumors of a lot of potential places that the CPL could go to in Ontario, even around the GTA. I've personally said that I think the GTA should cram as many teams as physically possible into this area because just those sorts of rivalries that they can create is amazing. Like I've said, we should have a Mississauga team, a Markham team, a Scarborough team, just as many as physically possible. But the one that I have heard that there could be more traction to right now is a Durham-Peel region team. I've heard that they have had talks with an ownership group in Durham-Peel region. So it's very possible that an Ontario group that could be ready to go soon is a Durham-Peel, East Toronto sort of team. Now, even after Clanican said that he was talking about other groups, a bunch more information came out. First, we heard that foreign investment groups may be looking at purchasing a team in the Ottawa area. Now, this makes sense as a lot of foreign investors with some money who were interested in getting into soccer in North America could see that the Ottawa Fury folding leave a gap in the market for soccer in Ottawa, and the Ottawa Fury were averaging over 4,000 people a game, which would make them a middling CPL attendance. So obviously the market is there for there to be a professional soccer team in Ottawa, and if what it takes is a foreign investment group to come in and make a team in Ottawa, then so be it. I think that Ottawa is a prime location for a CPL team. It's the biggest metropolitan area in Canada right now that does not have a professional soccer team. So Ottawa, I feel like, should get a team pretty quick, and if a foreign investment group right now does come in and try to get a team in Ottawa for possibly as soon as 2021, 2022, that actually speeds up the process of Ottawa getting a professional soccer team that I said would happen when the Fury folded. Even when the Fury were still around, I said it would take them to about 2021, 2022 to finally move to the CPL. And then when they folded, I said I thought that ownership groups would be wary about putting a team in Ottawa because obviously it didn't work out for OSEG in the way that they wanted it to. But if a foreign investment group thinks they can make it work, let them give it a shot. And if they can play in a stadium that's not TD Place Stadium, that would be great because that field looks ugly for soccer. Following the Ottawa rumors, there was another rumor that potentially a team was being put in Kitchener-Waterloo. Now, a lot of what the initial rumor said has turned out to be false, but it doesn't change the fact that potentially Kitchener-Waterloo could have a team there eventually. In fact, I think Kitchener-Waterloo would be a fantastic city for the CPL to expand to. It adds a great rival for Hamilton that's not a Toronto-based team, and you can have Kitchener-Waterloo-Hamilton be a major rivalry, and then those two teams all rivalrying against the Toronto region teams, because I feel like once a second Toronto region team pops up, which we know it well, Hamilton Forge versus York Nines rivalry loses a little bit of that geographical touch that it had, and after that, the Forge being the big team in the CPL that they are going to need a new main geographical rival, and I think Kitchener-Waterloo is the perfect step-up placement for that. And the last big rumor about CPL expansion from these last couple months actually came out today. And this is a weird one because a small Twitter account, Soccer Made in Canada, posted a tweet where they said that they were hearing rumors that a team could potentially be placed in St. John's, Newfoundland, with a redevelopment of King George V Stadium, and they could play out of that. Now, I've heard a lot of people questioning such a small account tweeting about this, and I mean, the CPL has had a lot of problems with people creating fake Twitter accounts to try and just kind of get a big, like, oh, boom, there's a team in Kitchener-Waterloo, and then it turns out that it's fake in, like, an hour later. But this guy is different because his account's been around since 2018, his past post history seems pretty good. I don't think he'd sacrifice what has been just a pretty normal, reputable Twitter account that's been around for over 2 years now, and also he follows me, so I'm going to say that this is kind of legit. But a team in St. John's is very interesting because St. John's has the potential to be like another Halifax. It's a pretty big city in maritime Canada where there's just not very much going on, and they don't really have much in the way of professional sports, but they do have pretty significant populations, and putting a professional sports team there will lead to probably great success. But to me, the most interesting part about this is King George V Stadium, because King George V Stadium is such a unique and obscure part of not just Canadian history, but of soccer history, because King George V Park is the oldest surviving soccer-specific stadium in North America. Yeah, it's in St. John's, Newfoundland. That's bizarre. And in fact, this stadium was where Canada beat Honduras in 1985 to win the CONCACAF Championship and qualify for our only World Cup. Yes, this is the stadium that's given Canada its greatest soccer moment as a nation. It deserves a CPL team. And the stadium has a capacity of 10,000, which is a little bit large for the CPL right now, but I have a feeling in a couple of years it could be about perfect if CPL attendances go up the way I think they can. Now, because of how recently this rumor has come out, and because of a lot of issues with putting a team in St. John's, most notably the travel, it makes sense that it would take a while for there to be a team in St. John's, but I've had a feeling deep down in my heart that there should be a team in St. John's in the Canadian Premier League. There should be a team in King George V's Park in the Canadian Premier League. It's just too important of a place for Canadian soccer to be left unnoticed. This is probably a far future expansion project for the CPL, but I could see it potentially being done possibly in time for the 2026 World Cup year. I want to say right now that I guarantee that by 2030, there will be a Canadian Premier League team in St. John's. One more thing I want to talk about real quick, moving a little bit away from the Canadian Premier League. So since the Canadian Premier League was announced, basically David Klanakin has said that his long-term goals for the CPL include a Division 2. And with the CPL buying League 1 Ontario and with League 1 BC starting up, it seems like there is a set hierarchy being built, with Tier 3 being provincial regional leagues, and then Tier 1 being the CPL, and Tier 2 potentially being a second national tier. However, supposedly with the recent issues with lower level Canadian teams getting sanctioning to play in USA-based leagues, particularly amateur teams that currently play in USL 2, like the Calgary Footbills, like Thunder Bay Chill, like WSA Winnipeg, I believe they're called. These teams are starting to get concerned about their ability to continue playing in US leagues in the future, and I think the Ottawa Fury folding had a large part to do with that. So the owners of these teams are now talking about potentially creating a Division 2 Canadian League amongst themselves. And this is very interesting because it has the potential to be very dangerous for Canadian soccer, because if you have a second tier league that isn't affiliated with the Canadian Premier League, then promotion relegation doesn't look like it will happen, because anyone who would be interested in starting off in a Division 2 CPL spot when the CPL does eventually expand to getting a second division can just go and join this new league, and then if they ever do talk about the two leagues joining to a promotion relegation between each other, it becomes an interesting fight, because the owners basically paid to get into the CPL and they're not going to go to this other league that's not the CPL if they don't do well. But if we can get an established second tier league that's already kind of filled out, then the CPL doesn't have the issue of when it hits 14 teams or whatever they hit when they eventually want to split off and create a second division. They don't have the issue of having to basically create 7 new teams, 8 new teams from scratch to make a Division 2. They can look at this already established league, and maybe it'll have like 8 teams in it, and they'll say, hey, you have 8 teams, we're going to join maybe 2 more teams in that the CPL was working on to get in CPL 2, and just create you guys as our second division to start promotion relegation now, because we have the first tier CPL fully fledged out. It's a very interesting turn of events, and I'm not really sure anyone knows how it would work. I know every Canadian soccer fan wants them to be connected and wants them to be full promotion relegation. I think that with those established teams, full promotion relegation could lead to some crazy moments, aka Calgary Foothills and Calgary Cavalry being in the exact same league, WSA Winnipeg and Winnipeg Valor being in the same league. You can get some great derbies out of this. But right now, if they were to make this second tier Canadian league unattached from the CPL, it's going to be very hard to sell, because it's going to be hard to sell a product, especially given that most of these teams that already exist are in places that have CPL teams. It's going to be very hard to market to people when the CPL teams aren't selling out, and be like, I know that not enough of you are going to sell at the CPL stadiums, but you should also come to our games in a obviously inferior product. So while a second division national league in Canada is a must to happen at some point, I feel like right now is too much too soon. And I don't think that a second division should really even be considered until the CPL has over 10 teams and has probably been around for like 5-ish years. But yeah, that's what's been going on with the Canadian Premier League and potential expansion of the Canadian Premier League. Comment down below what you think of all these cities and what you think of the rumors that the CPL could go to them, and if you think the CPL could do good there. And also comment of any new cities that I didn't mention that you think the CPL should move into. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.